Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joan Qualls coming to you from Joan's Kitchen. This week I'm going to be making tiramisu, which is a pretty popular dessert here in the States. It actually does have its origins in Italy, and it has some unusual ingredients and some ingredients that are commonplace. It has ladyfingers in it. Ladyfingers are kind of an egg biscuit, and they were used actually for babies teething in Italy back in the day. They will be soaked in some coffee. We use ladyfingers because they can go in liquid without disintegrating, and when they've been soaked in the liquid they get a consistency almost kind of like a sponge cake. We're going to be using some fresh eggs, which we have right here, mascarpone cheese, which is an Italian kind of cream cheese. We have coffee that we're going to be soaking the biscuits in, a little tiny bit of sugar, and then a sweet wine that's called passito. So I'm going to be going over these ingredients as we go through the demonstration. To start with, I'm going to be cracking my eggs, and I'm going to show you how to do this. When you crack an egg, you want to crack it, first of all, on the counter or on the table, and you want to crack it kind of sideways. The reason that we're doing this is because I'm going to be separating the eggs and the whites, and the egg whites can't have any fat in them. And I have 3 bowls here, so I'm going to be putting the whites in one, the yolks in another, and then when I have a clean egg white, I'm going to put it over in the other bowl. So that way, if you accidentally get a little bit of yolk in the egg white, you can throw that one out and do a clean one without contaminating all your egg whites if you put them all in the same bowl. You do it sideways so that you don't, if you do it on the edge of the bowl, you might break the shell into the egg and contaminate the egg white with the yolk. So here goes with the first one. I'm using the sharp edge of the eggshell to cut the egg white, and I'm going to put that over here in my clean bowl. And here goes my second one. So my yolk's going to go over there. My egg white's going to go into my clean bowl, and here's my last one. Of course, I'm going to have a problem with this one. The other way to do this that you see a lot of cooks doing is just to put it in your hand like this and let the egg yolk kind of slip through your hands and separate out the white like that. So let me just rinse my hands after doing that. So here goes my third egg white into the clean bowl, and I'm done with those for now. I've actually gone ahead and done a step so that we wouldn't take so much time today. What you're going to do first is you're going to beat the egg whites. And egg whites, as I mentioned, they can't have any fat in them. If you have any fat in them, they won't whip up as they're supposed to. So you have to have absolutely clean beaters and an absolutely clean bowl to put them in, and then using this technique to make sure that your egg whites are not contaminated by any egg yolks. One other thing I wanted to mention is that this recipe, the eggs are not cooked. So when you're making a recipe that's going to have eggs in it that are not cooked, there's a couple things that you want to watch out for. First of all, make sure that your eggs are as fresh as they possibly can be. And the second thing is, before you open your eggs, look them over to make sure that there's no cracks in the shell. If the eggshell was previously cracked, you could possibly have some bacteria in there, which would be bad. Also, when you have recipes that call for beating the egg whites and the egg yolks, because I'm lazy and because I don't like to have to clean my things a second time, I go and I beat my egg whites first, and then I beat the egg yolks after that. So what I have right here is my egg whites that are beaten stiff, and then I have my egg yolks over here, which have been beaten with a little bit of sugar. And the recipe calls for you to beat the egg yolks until they're light and thick, and I'm going to show you the difference in the color here. Typically they tell you that you want to have like a lemon colored egg yolk. So here's the egg yolks the way they came out of the egg, and you can see in the bowl that it is a much lighter color. It's beaten with the sugar and it's gotten thicker. So what we're going to do next is take our mascarpone cheese, and we're going to mix that into the egg mixture here. The cheese and the eggs, I had them both at room temperature because they beat better, the egg whites, at room temperature, and the mascarpone cheese is much easier to mix in here if it's softened to room temperature. So I'm going to together real quickly. Because the cheese is so soft, it mixed really nicely into the egg yolk and sugar mixture. I'm just going to give it one more mix, and then I'm going to add the sweet wine. Liqueur in this is totally optional. You don't have to put any liquor in if you don't want to, and that's totally fine. I do have my sweet wine measured out, so I'm just going to put that in and mix that really quickly. Okay, that is done, and the next thing that we are going to do is to mix the beaten egg whites into the egg yolks, and we're actually going to do a technique that's called folding them. So folding, the egg whites are beaten because they have a lot of air in it, and the air in there is going to give this kind of an airy texture, which we don't want to lose by mixing it up with the mixer. So you fold them. So you take out a bunch of egg whites like this, and you put it in what you're folding it into, and then with a spatula like this, you're going to kind of work the mixture around, and this is called folding. So what you want to do is keep some of the volume of the egg whites that you've beaten in here, and it's going to make this egg yolk and cheese mixture that we have just kind of more light and airy, and that's going to be more what you're used to for the traditional filling in the tiramisu. Tiramisu in Italian means pick-me-up. And the story is that the pick-me-up, it's supposed to be like a little snack to pick you up maybe in the afternoon, and it picks you up because of the sugar in it and the biscuits that are soaked in coffee, which has a little bit of caffeine. Honestly, to me, the caffeine amount and the sugar is so minimal, I don't know if it really is going to pick you up, but that's what the story is. Tiramisu was invented in Italy. We believe that it was invented in the Veneto region in the 1960s. By a well-known baker there who had a very famous bakery. The first time that it shows up in a food dictionary is in 1983. And it's been a very popular dish here in restaurants in the US for many years. One of the reasons that I like to make it is because it's really not difficult to make, and everybody seems to really like it quite a bit. Okay, so we have our egg whites mixed into our egg yolk and cheese mixture. And I'm going to grab the cocoa for garnishing it. Okay, the next step that we're going to have is to take our ladyfingers and soak them in coffee. So I have 2 cups of cold coffee here that we brewed earlier today. And I'm just pouring that into a flat pan. We're going to be using this to dip the biscuits into. And then I also have a pan over here that I'm going to be using to layer the biscuits into. So I'm going to kind of get this set up like this. And again, these are the ladyfingers. The ladyfingers, they believe, were invented in the province of Savoy, either in the late 1400s or the early 1500s, and they think that these were invented to celebrate a visit from the French king. Savoy now is an area that looks like it's kind of on the border of Switzerland and France. The ladyfingers in these packages typically come packaged in plastic sleeves like this to keep them fresh. We're not going to be using all of these in the recipe today. So I'm going to go ahead and open these. And you just take the ladyfinger, it's got a sugar coating on one side and the other side is plain. And I'm just going to dip it in the coffee like that. And I'm going to layer them in this pan right here. So we just go through that process, dipping them and layering them. Tiramisu originally was made in a round pan, but because the ladyfingers are rectangular, you can also do it in a square pan. You can also do it in individual cups. It's kind of nice to do it in a glass pan because that way you see the layers of the egg and cheese as well as the layers of the biscuits. So I'm able to get about 6 in the bottom of this pan here, so there we go. And now what we're going to do is just take the egg and cheese mixture and layer a little bit of that on top of here. and kind of spread it around. And then we're going to repeat. We're going to do another layer of the ladyfingers soaked in coffee. And it's just a quick soak. If you soak it in there too long, they'll start to fall apart on you. But they're kind of a dry biscuit, so soaking them quickly like this does actually allow them to absorb the coffee that we're dipping them in. I need to get another package out here. So now I have a layer of biscuits in the bottom, a layer of the egg and cheese mixture, another layer of biscuits on top that were soaked in coffee. So I'm going to put another layer of the egg and cheese mixture on here just to cover this. We're going to do one more layer of biscuits and then one more layer of the cheese, and then we're going to finish this off with some cocoa dusted on the top just for the appearance, to make it kind of fancy. The mascarpone cheese is an Italian cream cheese. It's different than the cream cheese that we get here in the US. The mascarpone cheese is made from cow's milk, but it's made from cream that has some kind of an acid in it to make it congeal. Our cream cheese is made out of milk. If you can't get mascarpone cheese, you can use a substitute that you make from cream cheese, where you would be mixing the cream cheese with a little bit of whipping cream and maybe some sour cream. Besides tiramisu, mascarpone cheese can be used in risotto and also in polenta. I like to use it in polenta. It gives it kind of more body when you have a polenta that you're serving with some kind of a meat with gravy.
Do you use any liquors in your recipe?
I used a liquor, it's a sweet Italian wine that's called Passito. This is a wine that's made, it's kind of like an ice wine. It's made from grapes that are left on the vine until they're drying up, kind of like raisins. So it's a sweet wine. You can also use Marsala in this. You can also use Kahlua, because Kahlua also goes with the coffee, or you could even use Bailey's, which also is a drink that sometimes goes with coffee. But the alcohol is purely optional. It's fine if you leave it out. You don't have to put that in. So now we are going to be putting in our last little bit of this cheese mixture here and spreading that around on the top. So I have all my lady fingers that are dipped in coffee that are covered with all the egg white stuff. And the last thing that I'm going to do is take a little cocoa, and it's just, you need just a tiny bit because you're just going to be dusting the top of this. So I'm going to take just about a teaspoon, and I have it in a small sieve, and I put my teaspoon in there and I'm just shaking it out just to kind of like dust the top of the tiramisu. I learned to make this in a cooking school in Tuscany, where I went for my 50th birthday. And the chef there said that he said that the name means that it should be eaten with a spoon. And it is a very soft kind of pudding dish that you can eat with a spoon or with a fork, but a spoon is better because it's really custardy. So here is the finished dish, the tiramisu. This needs to chill for a couple of hours before serving, but that's it. It was really quite easy and quick to put together, and you should be able to find most of the ingredients. The ladyfingers you can typically find either at a specialty food store or an Italian store or an Italian deli. And the mascarpone, you typically find that in a gourmet cheese section of probably like a higher end supermarket. You can also get it at Trader Joe's. And as I mentioned, if you can't find it, you can make a substitute with cream cheese. You could look that up online to see what it is, but it's basically a brick of cream cheese with a 1/4 cup of whipping cream, heavy cream, just mixed together, and it resembles the consistency of the mascarpone cheese, and for this recipe that'll work out just fine. So until next week, this has been Cooking from Joan's Kitchen, and I hope you enjoyed the recipe, and I hope that you really try it, and the recipe is going to be linked in the comments of this post. So thank you. Ciao, ciao.